Welcome to Ged Dis Live with your host, Lady Mae. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and today we're going to have such an incredible show. Today my guest is one of my closest friends, and her name is Dora Smith. Dora is a widow twice, and through it I've watched Dora grow and mature, and she's really just been an incredible inspiration, not to me, but so many other women and men that are out there that have suffered loss in one way or another. So I want to introduce to you to one of the people. I think she's just like the funniest person in the entire world. But I want to introduce to you my friend Dora Smith. And Dora, welcome so much. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. Listen, tell me, I know, but they don't know. When you were in high school, you graduated high school, and you got married to Tyrone Staten.
Yes.
And now, were you and Tyrone high school sweethearts? How did you meet?
Well, it ended up being an introduction from my cousin Frances. They actually were in Nassau Community College together, and I think he really had eyes for her, and she didn't have eyes for him. And then one day she says, I think I know someone that would be your match. And that's how we were actually introduced, my cousin Frances.
How long were you married?
We were actually married 8 years, total 8 years.
All right, and I know from that you had your daughter Selena.
Yes, and out of that union was birthed my daughter Selena.
Okay, now you're married 8 years, Tyrone becomes ill, and he passes away. He passed away when?
In 1990, February of 1990.
Okay, now he passes away. Now this is, I want you to brace yourself because this to me is like hilarious. And you know, I can say whatever I want to say. This is my sister. We call each other sister.
Sister.
So I can say what I want to say. She won't be offended. And this is just going to be really great. Okay, so watch this. Watch this. So he passes away after 8 years. He passes away February.
Yes.
And then that next month, you met a man named J.B. Smith.
Not in March. I met him in May.
Okay. Go ahead. Tell me about it.
Well, it was a hookup again. I was at the bank. And this particular woman says, Dora? And I said, yes. And she says, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. And she says, you look just like my pastor's wife. I says, okay. She said, but you don't understand. I said, you don't understand what? Well, he's just out of it. He just goes to work, he goes to church, and he's out of it. And I said to her, tell him to call Sister Dora. And so that's where that began. And we actually spoke on the phone maybe about, I say collectively about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Before we were actually introduced face to face. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history. So we met after the phone calls, got together with May, and we were actually married July.
Of that same year?
Same year, July 15th.
Wow.
1990.
And how long were you married after that?
We were married a total of 13 years.
Okay. So you know where I'm going, right?
Yes, I know where you're going.
All right. So you're with Tyrone for 8 years. How long did you date before you got married with Tyrone? How long did you date?
Well, it wasn't really I guess I could say it was a dating type of setting. I met him in 1980. We were actually engaged in 82.
Okay.
In 81, and we got married in 82. So I would say about a year gave us time to plan for the wedding, and then we got married in 1982.
Okay, and then he passes away in, say that month again?
In February of 1990.
February of 1990.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and a few months later, you met a man?
Man of God, yes I did.
Okay,
yeah.
And you got married a few months later?
Yes, I did.
To a perfect stranger?
Yes, I guess you could say he was perfect stranger, but he was perfect for me.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't give Tyrone time to thaw out.
I think the scripture tells us until death.
Okay.
And I did that.
All right, so you waited till he died.
Yeah. So, not so much that I waited, but I feel like the Lord made provision for me.
Okay.
Because I was a young widow, and I had a little daughter who was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. So I did look up to him and say, when you send another. I didn't say if, I said when. And so it's really God's business that he sent him right away.
Right.
And so I just went along with the journey. and it was wonderful.
That's great that you said it was God's business, because you know we nosy, right?
Yes,
And you know we want to get in your business.
Yes.
But it wasn't our business.
No, it really wasn't.
No, it was God's business.
It was God's business.
That's a great thing, because a lot of times I know things happen in our lives, different things like that, and people say, you know what, that's too soon. How you going to marry somebody you don't know? At least you should mourn. I know churches mourn, 6 months before they even begin almost considering looking for a pastor. But you decided, okay, Lord, this is something, a discussion that you and JB had, that you decided this is something that we need to do. Did you marry quickly because, okay, it's just me and you.
Yes.
Nobody's here but me and you.
Okay.
And they're not listening. But was it a sex issue? Because I know we're taught not to have sex out of marriage.
Right.
And I remember one time somebody said to you, well, you didn't give Tyrone time to thaw out. And you was like, well, he may still be cold, but I'm still hot. And so we got issues, and I remember just that thought always stuck out in my mind.
Right.
And I thought that was just so funny, because it was real.
It's real.
It's real that, okay, yes, my husband died, but I still have issues that need to be met. So with you and JB getting married, were you getting married because it was a sex issue, you didn't want to fornicate, or did you feel that this was just the timing of God and let's do this?
Well, to be honest, when we first met, and then he realized that I was going to be his wife, the Lord showed me in a vision, and I didn't know that. So literally, while I was trying to just play it off like we'll see, he knew. However, when that particular situation was manifested unto me, we had already said, maybe we'll wait until September. And then one evening he says, you know what? What's the wait? Your husband's dead, right? I said, right. And he said, your wife dead? He said, yep, right, check. I said, so let's check that out.
Right.
And we went ahead and we actually planned our wedding in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So when you think about May, June, so really I would say May, and then June, and then July we were married. So I won't say that it was a flesh issue for me.
Right.
It might have been that for him. His wife had only been, that May, she had been dead a year. So he had gone a longer flow of time without a mate. For me, it wasn't so much a physical, but I just looked at it as the plan of God for my life. And I said, God, if you make provision for the vision, I'm in it. And so I thank God for that, and it has proven to be a blessing to my life.
Wow. So now here you are, a young woman, and so your husband, again, refresh my memory, you are married with JB how long?
I'm actually married to Elder J.B. Smith. I was married to him for 13 years.
Okay. And you had a daughter from that relationship as
yes.
well, Shanice.
Now that's when the shock came, because I was actually 42 years old when I had my last baby. And people said, what's that about? I said, it's about God. And they said, I wouldn't want to be you. Don't you think you're at risk? I said, no, children are a heritage of the Lord. So how can I be at risk when I'm what God has said I'm going to be? I'm going to be married. The Bible also tells us to be fruitful and to multiply. So there again, that was God's business that he allowed me to multiply at that time. Little did people know, can I go there?
Go there.
That 5 years later, that my second husband would also pass away.
Wow.
So then the same people that said, said, oh, you're lucky. And I says, no, it's not lucky. It has always been God's plan. And I say yes to his will, and I say yes to his way. And today I stand in his way and in his will, and I stand strong because of that.
Do you miss him?
Oh, sure.
What about Tyrone?
I do, because I have Tyrone's daughter also,
right.
And when you have children from that particular individual, you never really lose sight of who they are. The amazing thing, and it may seem funny to others, but I always say to others, my first husband was younger, and my second husband was older.
How much older?
My second husband was 13 years older than me.
Okay.
And my first husband was 1 year younger than me.
Okay. Elder J.B. Smith, and for those of you who don't go to church or you're not familiar with the lingo, what happens is that when you're a minister or you're a preacher in the Pentecostal churches, you have to take on the title or the position that's called an elder, which gives you the right to preach, to bury, to marry, to christen. And so when you hear that term elder, that's how we're referring him. So while I was saying JB, I was just trying to put the name there so
that's
that,
fine.
but now from this point on, we're going to call him Elder JB Smith or Elder Smith. Okay, so now Elder JB Smith, the two of you are together. And How does it go? Because he has his children.
Yes.
He had, memory serves me, 3 children?
2 that I helped raise. But
Okay.
He did have 3, but 1 was out the house.
Okay.
Was already pretty much an adult placement. The other 2 were our son.
Right.
Who was at that point, when I married his dad, he was 12. And the daughter, Tracy, was 13. And Selena was 7.
Now, Selena is your daughter with Tyrone, the first husband?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. So how was it when the 2 families came together? Was it friction? Was it difficult? Was it, you're not my mama, or I don't know who you think you are, you ain't my daddy? Did you have to go through that with your children?
Well, to be honest with you, nothing like that took place initially in the beginning. I guess because it was a sensitive placement for me to enter their lives right after losing their mom a year prior. They were a little bit withdrawn and trying to figure out, who is this lady trying to snatch our daddy up? Even though I hadn't done anything to them. But that's natural when it comes to the grieving process or the mourning process. When you lose a mate or you lose a parent, the next thing you do is cling to the one that's left. So now here I come a year later, and they're trying to cling to dad, and I'm trying to cling to dad.
Right.
They didn't really say anything. I was very, very close to Tracy. My son, it's not that he wasn't close to me, but he was kind of more inward with it. You could see a little anger there, and I think it was just like you said, not so much at me, just at the situation. And as time went on, none of them ever said to me, "You're not my mother." And I never said to them, "You're my stepchildren." Even today when people saying, "Who's that?" That's my daughter Tracy, that's my daughter Selena, that's my son Christopher, and that's my daughter Darlene, and that's my daughter Shanice. I never used the word step because they were not steps. And as far as I'm concerned, they were a part of God's perfect plan. And I realize now that I'm so glad that I was the one that was chosen to be in their life, to be their mom. Even with my grandchildren, I'm just grandma. And they want to come to grandma's house. They want to eat grandma's food. There's no such thing as step grandma. I think that's where a lot of times people alter or actually falter with that, because the minute you label it step, it changes your positioning. So I just love being mom. I'm mom to them. I'm mom to anyone that needs me to be mom. I'm grandmom to anybody that needs me to be grandmom. I'm elder Dora to anybody that needs me to be elder. So I just like the positioning that God has given me. I am there to comfort, to give, and to share, because that's how God made me.
So you're with this older man, the children are there, you're in the house together, life is wonderful, but he was also a pastor.
Yes.
Of a church, New Generation Church. Now that's where we are now, and that's where we're filming from. We're here at New Generation Church, located at 337 Peninsula Boulevard in Hempstead, Long Island, New York. And now your son, Christopher Smith,
yes,
is the pastor. Elder Christopher Smith is the pastor. And I'm telling you, this is such an incredible place to worship. It's youthful, because a lot of times young people don't like to go to church. But if you have a young person that's in your house and they would go to church if there were other young people there, I highly recommend that you send them here. Pastor Christopher Smith and his wife, Lady Gina Smith, they're a young couple doing ministry, not church as usual. I will guarantee you that. Definitely not church as usual, but something that everyone can relate to. So again, just wanted to plug them in if you're looking for a place of worship. Now, what makes this great is that this was also the church that your husband pastored. After he passed away, you stepped in his footsteps. You went in and you did it for about a year, 2 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years, and you decided that now it's time to pass it on to Christopher.
No, I didn't make that decision. There again, I heard God.
Great.
And when the Lord said it was time to release this ministry to my son, which I knew even when it took place, my husband spoke to me on a Monday and said, "If something happens to me, I need you to take the ministry." I looked at him. He looked at me. He says, "Okay, let's start again. If something happens to me, I need you to take the ministry. And I know you're thinking about Chris. And there's going to be a time for that." And then he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "You going somewhere?" And he looked at me and said, "Let's be serious." I thought about that.
Right.
But would you believe that Friday morning he was gone?
Wow.
So there again, I love when someone gives me instructions, and I love to follow them. So I went to my bishop, the late Bishop Hennett, And I told him that what my husband said, that I needed to follow in my husband's footsteps until, and that's how it was. So for 3.5 years I pastored, with my son right in the midst of the ministry. I had my son licensed to ministry and then ordained, and then I actually released the ministry in his hands.
Okay. Now, I know with Tyrone was ill, but this was different with Elder Smith. He was ill, but did you think it was ill unto death? Did you think it was an illness that would happen in a couple of years? Or was, oh, this is just a cold and you'll be okay?
Well, I do know, because we were so close in the beginning, we would actually go to different checkups and things like that. And they did mention that he had an enlarged heart, and he knew that. I didn't think about it one way or the other. And it wasn't until the latter part of our marriage, he began to deal with a little bit of congestiveness in this area. He did have open heart surgery. And the amazing thing with that was they did tell him once he had the surgery, he would come off the medications and they would be reduced. And I remember one afternoon once he came home and he was feeling better, and the doctor pretty much said, you're doing very, very well. See you in a couple of months. But my husband said to me, I know he said he'd see me in a couple of months, but he gave me more medicine. I don't like that. And my husband took the pills and he threw them. He said, it's not going to be like this. I said, no, it won't be. He said, like I said, it's not going to be like that. And to be honest with you, I think it was maybe about, let me see, I remember Jasmine was born. My granddaughter Jasmine was born in September. And my husband actually passed away in November,
Wow.
November 14th. And so when you think about that, he knew, I didn't know. But I also realized that because it's divine intervention, I realized that my husband's exodus was really my son's entrance.
Wow.
And you have to see it the way God has it set. We cannot be selfish in this life. We cannot try to figure it out. But what we need to do is to continually trust God. Because if I was doing this in the natural sense, I wouldn't have been able to focus. I wouldn't have been able to inhale and exhale. But because I saw even then that the plan was much larger than I could see at that particular time. And when I flash back, I'm penning 2 books, but when I flash back, it all has to do with the plan of God and whatever he has to do through us for the kingdom. So it is the kingdom, work of the kingdom.
Now let me ask you this, because in both cases, you and I, I feel like we've always been the best of friends. Yeah. And even, I remember when Tyrone got ill.
Right.
And everybody would ask you, even me, I was, Dora, how's Tyrone? Oh, he's fine.
Right.
Dora, how's the girl? He's good. He's great. And like the day before or something, Dora, how's Tyrone? Girl, God is great. He's doing a wonderful thing. Tyrone is fine. Right. And then the next day, Tyrone was gone. Right. And I'm like, okay, but she just said he was fine. Right. And then even with Elder Smith, Dora, how's he doing? He's great. He's all right. He's doing great. Girl, God is a healer. He's doing it. And then next thing I know, I get a phone call. May, yes, you're okay. I'm doing good. And it wasn't you. It was somebody else that called me. It's like, listen, I have something to tell you. But and then I find out your husband, that Elder Smith passed. Yeah. And in that instance, I know that he was ill, but I didn't know he was that ill. Yeah. Do you think you didn't want to accept the reality of you're getting ready to lose a husband with the case that Tyrone was ill and you're watching him literally fade away before your eyes? Is it that you didn't want to face reality about what was happening, or was it more of a spiritual situation where you said to yourself, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with this, or this is a God thing? What was your thought process? Because to those who are around you, you went on as if nothing was going on. It was business as usual. But in all reality, it wasn't business as usual. You were watching your first husband fade away, now a second husband fade away. How do you do that? Does that take a mental toll, emotional toll on you? Do you get to the point, and I think I'm shooting a lot of questions.
That's fine.
But does it get to the point like you're saying, God, you got to be kidding me, for real? We're going through this again? What is your thought process in this situation? How does this happen?
Okay, well, with the first situation, I was so indoctrinated with a faith life to speak those things that are not as though they are. So in spite of what I saw, I had to really still base my presentation on what I believed. I believed that my husband would be healed. I even said to Selena, she said, I thought you said Daddy was coming home. And I said, I did say that, but guess what? He didn't come home, but he went home. Now, whether or not that would suffice for a 7-year-old, I have no idea. But that was the way I presented it to her. God is sovereign. He does not make mistakes. I also see now with that the exodus of my first husband was the introduction to meeting my new husband. And then from that perspective, where we stand today. So there again, I'm in the hands of God. I'm in the care of God. So it's nothing that he does that I can't accept. Now, whether or not someone else may feel that way, that's how he made me. So my perspective, you're always going to see a smile, doesn't mean I'm not hurting. I have the Holy Ghost and I have Mary and Kay. But at the same time, you know, I have such a faith in him that whatever he puts on my plate, I often tell people, it's ordered.
Right.
When you go to the restaurant and you want to make sure whatever you've asked for, is that what I ordered? Well, the Bible tells us in Job, have you considered my servant Job? So I take it as an honor to be considered by God, that he can put these things on my plate as they're ordered, and I can take it one bite at a time and say, God, for you I live and for you I die.
Wow. Because
at the end of the day, I still know that God is with me. Now, I don't advise anybody to take the order without guns.
See, don't walk
because
up
if it's on your
restaurant.
plate and you don't have him, you might be suicidal.
Right.
But with God, whatever's on my plate, I can set the table and eat and be blessed because I know God is in control.
Now let me ask you. Now that's incredible because a lot of times we ask for mates, and a lot of times we say, God, I know what I want in a husband. This is what I need from you. And so did you ask for Elder J.B. Smith? Was that a part of your prayer, in your prayer life? Did you say, well, Lord, I want a man and he needs to be older and he needs to be a preacher and I want him to look like this and I want him to smell like that and I want him to talk like that, and when we're in bed, this is what he has to do. Was that part of your prayer life?
Of course not. And even at the funeral, I looked up and I said, God, I've been here, done that. And so I looked up and said, now, when you send another? So that would then be number 3. And literally in my spirit, I heard God say, ministry first.
Wow.
There's a ministry that's going to come first. And right after that time, I said about 3 weeks after my second husband passed away, the Lord gave me the name for my ministry.
And the name of your ministry is?
It's Widows Might,
okay.
M-I-G-H-T, Ministries Incorporated.
Now, how did you come up with the name Widow's Might?
The Lord gave it to me 3 weeks after my husband died. But I just wrote it down and hid it because I said, what is this? But as time went on, because from the, November 2003 to today, there's 86 women that I know personally that lost their husband after me.
Wow.
86. Now, at that particular time, I think we were right around 30 or 32. But from that point to 2012, there's 86 women I know personally. I can rub shoulders with. I know their names. I know where they live. I know their phone number that lost their husband after me. So there's a need for this particular ministry. And I also realize the death of 2 husbands makes me apropos for this ministry because there's nothing anybody has to tell me. I walk it every day.
Wow. So you go home and Elder Smith is not home. How do you adjust to now being able to come home and your husband is home? And I know the man was an awesome cook. Oh my God, he was an incredible cook. Dinner is not ready for those nights he made dinner. Mm-hmm. You're now sleeping alone. You don't need Victoria's Secrets now. You need the lotions and the sprays. Mm-hmm. But the negligee goes back into the drawer, back into the closet.
I actually gave those away. No
need.
Now,
right, you don't need them anymore. So now what happens? How do you make that adjustment from being a single woman who can get it anytime you want it? And when I say it, I mean sex.
Married.
And you're right, I'm sorry, a married woman. Mm-hmm. You're a married woman and you can have all the sex, all you want, anytime you want, to now it comes to an abrupt halt. How do you deal with that?
Well, there again, The Lord made provision again because, prior to my husband's passing away, we were not really intimate the latter part because he was not feeling the best. So it didn't register that the Lord was really preparing me for that type of life where I wouldn't be dealing with that. So it had been a while. So it was almost like, wow, what does vanilla ice cream taste like? And I'm being real about that.
Right.
So I even appreciate that. Somebody often says God has jokes. He really does.
Mm-hmm.
You may not see it in the process, but when you think about how he did that, it was quite a while. So when he passed away, it wasn't like, It was like, I kind of just continued and still continue today. And it'll be 9 years that my second husband passed away. So the way it was is the way it is. And if you want to be kept, you can be kept.
So you're saying that it's possible that you can have it and then not have it and be able to go on.
Oh, no doubt about it. In God.
Right.
In God, all things are possible. Outside of the realm of God, I can't tell you because that's not how I walk.
Right.
So I'm in him, and in him I live and move, and I have my being. So that's my protection. That's my barrier. I will add this note to make everybody else laugh, but I didn't go back to the marital bed. First of all, I didn't go back to the marital bed that we were in. I didn't. I slept on the couch for about 6 years.
Wow.
It wasn't hard to do that because my daughter wanted to be close to me, and I really didn't want her in the bed with me because I felt like, and still feel like today, that the Lord will send another king.
He's mad at you.
And so with her being 5 years old, I didn't want her to get used to being next to me, and then one day I have to say, you have to go. So she was on one couch, and I was on the other. And that would suffice the situation. However, that particular bed I don't sleep in even now. I actually have a brand new pillow top, and I only sleep across the bed. I don't go under the covers. Like I said, I don't need teddies because I don't have a bed. And so it's no reason to play games.
Right.
Mind over matter.
Right.
Sleep in a t-shirt, ankle socks, whatever I need to do to keep that atmosphere not charged.
Right. That urge, does it ever come up and you're like, how do you deal with it when that happens? What do you do?
The thoughts come to me, the memories come to me, but I'm not out of control. I don't run in showers and have to rinse off. The Lord has blessed me. I hear stories, and it's just not like that for me. The thought is there. I believe in God for another mate. I know he's somewhere out there. The Lord has already said that. But it's not like, hot flash. It's not that kind of situation. And I know I'm blessed today because I know a lot of women they have to leave on their lunch break to go home.
Right.
I never had to leave school to go home. I was a school teacher. I could not leave my class, and I didn't have to.
Wow.
So I'm blessed again.
That's great.
He's done something really special for me.
That's great.
That I believe.
That's great. So now you're going on and you're starting your ministry. And I know with dealing with loss, a lot of times people get stuck in that grieving process. They don't know how to let go. I've gone to funerals and I've seen people try to literally pull bodies out of caskets because they didn't want to let go. How did you let go?
Well, there again, I will attribute it to the fact that I realize everything that happens to me, there's a reason and a purpose. The grieving, weeping may endure for a night, and it may not. Just because I don't weep does not mean I don't grieve. But I often tell the widows that the grief is what you have to monitor because that can grip you. That can keep you to a place you don't want to get up. You don't want to do your hair. You don't want to do your nails. You want to stay in the room, but I'm here to tell the sisters or anybody else that it's time to rise. Get up and get out because you may not want to marry again, and that's okay. But in the event that you do, he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing. But he can't find you if you're home.
Right.
So you need to be where Boaz is. In my case, I'm just church. Now I'm retired, so I'm not at work. But wherever ministry takes me, that's where that man will be. And I know he's somewhere there. And I thank God for that because some have lost hope, but I'm here to bring hope. Because there is life after loss. There's life after